Good morning, everybody. This is Sean from Voices from the Dirt Road. Glad to be able to see you this morning. We got a great show set up for you. Hope you already got your cup of coffee. I got mine. We're looking forward to having a great conversation with you today. I just want to say, before I even really get started, if you want to communicate with us, please type into the chat. It's going to be a couple of things I'm going to talk about today. If you have questions, please put it in the chat. We'll try to address them today. And if not, we'll come back on the next show next week and have those questions addressed. We are planning to push out a lot of good information because a lot of things is actually happening in agriculture right now, from international effects all the way back to what's currently happening here on the ground. Let me just jump right into a couple of things. Let's take a look at the stool image and let me tell you what this show is all about. I think for the people that have been watching our show for quite some time, this is our 23rd episode. I think everybody was aware that this show is focused on rural America, trying to make sure that you have a voice, trying to make sure that we're sharing information that affects the people in rural America. At the same time, if you live in the cities, making sure that you understand what is currently going on out here and how that could affect you in Atlanta or wherever you actually live. So when you look at our stool here, it covers livestock, it covers row crops, it covers forestry, and under forestry that gets into all those specialty crops from pecan trees to fruit trees to collard greens and gardens and all those kind of things. And then it falls up under USDA, and USDA could be the NRCS or it could be the FSA. And we're going to talk about some of those organizations today because those two organizations are umbrella that help support our farmers throughout the United States. So with that, then as you can see at the top of our stool, it's always talking about the Farm Bill. Today's episode, we're going to talk a little about the Farm Bill. It has made some movements. I'm not sure if we're going to get across the finish line, but we will spend some time talking about that. So again, this show is to focus on those particular issues, looking through the lens of the rural community to ensure that somebody is speaking to the people here from the rural community, but at the same time trying to elevate your voice back to the people throughout the country that are making policy decisions. With that being said, before I get too deep into all that kind of things, we we played a video last week. I had to go out of town on an unexpected emergency, but we played a video last week where we talked about PFAS. So I thank you for all the feedback on that, and we're going to follow back up with the PFAS video. And those, when we do those particular videos, they will be specials that we will actually do at night because of my guests that we usually have cannot arrange themselves to be here at 7 o'clock in the morning. So as we do more of the PFAS series, those will always be at night, probably around 7 o'clock, but we'll let you know well in advance. But thank you for all the feedback. Continue to give us feedback, and we will try to get more experts in here to discuss what is going on with PFAS, a forever chemical, specifically here in Northwest Georgia, from Dalton, Georgia to Rome, and then on and beyond. Okay, what is actually, because at the end of the day, I'm a farmer just like everybody else. And what's currently happening on my farm is we got a lot of movement going on. Spring is in the year, is not here yet. I hadn't had the opportunity to go outside and check the cows at this point, but we have had some additional calves since the last time I talked to y'all guys. This little guy here was born, I think, like 2 days ago. Little bull calf, about 65 pounds. That particular cow there came from Red Hill Farms up there in Kentucky. So shout out to Red Hill. Great people up there. And I look forward to going back up again this year and buying some more. And then the other cow that you see right there, I got from a local farm here in my local area. We call her Skunk Tail, and she's a half Charolais and Red Angus, and I bred her to a registered Charolais bull, and that's her little calf that she just had this year. So we're moving in the right direction. I'm very proud of what we're doing. And as you can see, that's some of our Charolais cows there with the cow and her calf. So like I said, a lot of calves are being dropped on the head right now on the farm, which is a great thing. That's what when we built this farm, that's what it was all about. In addition to that, we actually started doing our cross fencing. And cross fencing is helping us with our regenerative ag program. One of the things I do here on my farm, we just don't talk about it, we actually do it. We rotate our cows completely around this farm, and in that process, now we have went from 4 pastures to 7 pastures. The pasture behind my house here, we're going to leave it as a normal pasture because that's where we have the corral and all those kind of things. But all the rest of the pastures now have the cross fencing so that we split everything in half. And then currently what we're working on right now on the farm is putting another path through the woods. So here in a few weeks, I will video the cows being able to move completely around the house or completely around the farm itself so that they never stay on grass too long. And at the same time, that improves their health, but at the same time, improves the grass so that it continues to grow. So a lot of things, like I said, is going on the farm, which is great. I know I rattled off a lot there, but at some point we will do a show where we talk about regenerative ag. We will do a show where we talk about rotational grazing, and we will do a show when we talk about herd management. And when I say that, I want to bring on guests that talk those things because I think it's important that you hear it from somebody else, not always hearing it from me. I think that's very important. So with that, I've talked about the cross fencing. I talked about the updates here on the farm. Now let us get into the show itself. So please put your seatbelts on because it's a lot of things is currently happening that is putting pressure on our farmers. I think most people know now that almost on a daily basis, 53 farmers per day is actually filing for bankruptcy. We got to get our hands around this and kind of go from there. So how is the government trying to help us fix this? You're going to see me look down because I want to make sure I get the information right. I want to look at my screen here. And I'm talking about the Farm Bridge Assistance payments. And for short, that's called FBA. So if you hear me say it's FBA, that's the Farm Bridge Assistance. Right now, excuse me, let me get a little coffee. Right now, what is currently going on? The USDA has provided $11 billion one-term payment for the bridge program for farmers. Okay, I think we all know that. That's something we've been talking about for quite some time, but let me break that down. Inside of that $11 billion, they held back $1 billion, and that $1 billion is for commodity farms, vegetable farms, specialty farms, all those things. And we'll break that down for you a little bit later on in the show this morning so that everybody understands this. One of the things that I would recommend to the USDA, and I've already called them, but I'm going to see them later on today anyway, and I'll say it again, is right now, if you go to their website, it talks about FBA program. However, it does not split it out to say FBA for large farms or farms that grow peanuts, soybeans, and cotton, those type commodities, versus the second phase that we're into now, where they're actually doing the specialty crops. So I think they need to give it a different little bit of a name, because when you go to the website, you can get confused on a couple of things, and that's why I wanted to talk to you about it this morning. So let me just slow down a little bit to make sure everybody gets this. The first part of the FBA, and I want to make sure I do this because people are getting confused out there. And when I say people are getting confused, farmers are getting confused. Okay. The first FBA that you hear right now, that FBA went to farmers that were doing peanuts, soybeans, cotton, large scale farms. These farms here are already registered inside of the FSA office. Okay, they were already established. Those farms based on them filling out the paperwork a few months ago, those farms actually are now receiving their payments. So they actually started receiving payments on February 28th of 2026. And as those applications are looked at, reviewed, and approved, those farmers will continue to get payments based on where they need to be. And remember what we talked about earlier in some early episodes, that payment, depending on the entity, could be up to $155,000. So I know it's a lot of information, but farmers clearly know what I'm talking about. So I want to make sure I'm clear on this. Farmers that are in that first program are currently getting payments right now. All right. Now, where I talked about the confusion is the same name, no change to the name. It's just the new FBA program. That program there is focused on the specialty crops, people that have vegetables, people that maybe their farms, their programs have never been filed with the FSA office. These individuals now, because this is for that $1 billion. These people now can actually also go to the FSA office or go to your local office in your county, sit down and talk with them and actually fill out the paperwork. That particular program right now, enrollment started on February 23rd, and it will go through April 17th, 2026. This is for, like I said, those specialty crops. And if you go to the website, it will give you a definition of specialty crops. But just to let you know, that's kind of like somebody has a garden where they doing a garden for the community, large scale garden, collard greens, whatever it is, or you have some other small scale thing. Okay, but I encourage you to go to the website and see that. But the key thing is you can apply right now, and it goes through April 17th. The deadline is April 17th. After that, your stuff would go through the same process as the first program. If they look at it, it makes sense and is approved, you will receive a payment. What I need to make sure that all of these specialty crop people understand, when you start, this is $1 billion is for the entire United States. So when you finally get your money, I want you to make sure you clearly understand that it may not be as much money as you thought it was going to be. So just think through that. I'm encouraging you to have that conversation with your local NRCS office or your local FSA office, whatever's closest to your house. They can help you, so that as you go through the process, you can get it done. You can also do the application in person, or you can do it electronically, or you can mail it in or fax it in. I would encourage you, the way that I do my stuff with the office, I go there in person to ensure that I understand what the program is about, understand everything that's actually supposed to be happening, and if I get approved, when am I going to get it? So key piece I just want everybody to know is these programs are happening right now. I'm going to recommend to the Department of Agriculture, USDA, that they actually need to change the name or tweak the name a little bit, because when you go to the website, and I encourage you to go to the website, you will see that the two names are confusing people out there. And the local office that you go to, in many counties, they're in the same location. It is the local FSA office. But I would go on a limb and say, if you closer to an NRCS office, you can go in there and they will at least put you in touch with the right people and kind of go from there. So just want to bring that to your attention, because that deadline is coming quick. And I want to make sure that everybody out there that's trying to get some help, get the help that they need to have. Now let's transition over to some current things that are currently happening here on the ground. Hey guys, the Farm Bill has finally made it out of committee. I think it was 2 nights ago it made it out of committee. One of the things that I want to tell you is right now, when I looked at it last night or the night before, I want to read the Farm Bill see what's in it. I just don't want to have the little highlights, because when you just get the highlights, this is when you find out that, wait a minute, that's the stuff they wanted you to know. If it was something else hidden there that has a great effect on you as the farmer, or you as the industry that provides equipment to farmers or whatever. So it's 182 pages. This week, myself and my team, we're going to go through it line by line, and then we'll come back and mark it up. We'll probably post it somewhere, but we'll also talk about it on the next episode next week. So I wanted to make sure that you clearly understand that, because I think it's important that from this show, if I'm going to try to speak for a rural community, somebody needs to read the document instead of just saying, yep, it looks good to me, because they give you the talking points or the top lines. But I want to go and actually go through every line, making sure how does it affect us as farmers here on the ground across the board. And then if some things need to change or to be improved, I would encourage you to reach out to your representative and ask him or her to go back into committee and see, can we get those things updated. So the Farm Bill is out there, but let me also bring this to your attention. As the Farm Bill, and that's great. I'm glad the Farm Bill has made it out of committee. I'm not making it out of committee does not mean that it's going to get passed. I want everybody to know that it's a long process. Okay, does not mean that, but a good thing is it has made it out of committee. And like I said, it's 182 pages. We're going to read it. We're going to give you some feedback next week, and we're going to continue to follow what is actually happening, because this is going to be affecting farmers for a long time. And as people know or don't know, the last farm bill that we actually had passed was 2018. That farm bill, majority of the money, 60% of the money that's in the farm bill is actually goes to our seniors and our less fortunate youth in the SNAP program. And then the rest of the money is set aside for farmers when it comes to a natural disaster. One of the things that I'm going to be looking for in the farm bill, and I don't think it's there yet, but I got to, like I said, I got to read it very closely. One of the things that I want to make sure that gets into the farm bill is addressing PFAS. How do we make farmers whole again that actually put PFAS or put for the forever chemical on their farm, grass, whatever they put it on, and didn't realize what they were doing. So I want to be clear. We don't want to do anything to make a farmer be in a situation where he's in the middle of a lawsuit, but I want to figure out how can we help a farmer if his farm was deemed that now it has forever chemicals on it. How can we help that farmer get back on his feet, or get back on her feet, so that they can actually go get a different farm somewhere else and go on with life? Because right now the cleanup for that is going to take some time, and I'm not even sure if we actually got a plan for cleanup. So these are the type things that I'm going to be looking for in that farm bill, because I believe the PFAS issue needs to be addressed somewhere, and it just makes sense to me. A portion of PFAS issues should be talked about in great detail inside the farm bill if we really trying to help our farmers out. So with that, that's enough talking. I need a break. I need to drink some coffee. What I want to move to now is when we don't have a lot of videos today, but we do have some serious videos today, because as y'all guys know, just earlier this week, I think 4 or 5 days, maybe 5th day or 6th day today, we actually just got into a violent combat war in Iran. I think everybody is aware that we got that going on in the Middle East. I think everybody follows on the show knows that I spent a significant amount of time in the military, and my last assignment was actually in the Middle East. So I know the leadership that's on the ground. I know the soldiers that are taking care of the business, and they're doing an amazing job. But I want to just make sure that in this next segment, how does this war that we have in the Middle East with Iran, how can that affect us as farmers? So that's where the conversation is going right now. And I think it's important that we all understand that, because input costs are already high. I'll just go on and tell you, input costs are going to get even higher. Many of the places that you're going to hear them talk about in this next coming video on Ag Day are places I have physically been on the ground. So on the back end of it, I'll talk to you a little bit about that from my other hat of being a retired general. So with that, Shelly, can you play the video, please?
As shippers try to move fertilizer out of the Middle East, U.S. corn acres hang in the balance. I'm Clinton Griffiths. We've been keeping you updated on the military action with Iran and what it means for moving crop inputs out of the region. Now, some analysts are putting a number on just how many acres of corn could be lost if those shipments remain in jeopardy. AgDay's Michelle Rook is continuing to follow this. And Michelle, every week that goes by is impacting those corn numbers.
Yeah, Clinton, USDA was already expecting about a 5 million acre cut to corn acres in 2026. However, that was before this latest spike in fertilizer prices and this major supply disruption. Now, analysts say it takes nearly 30 days to get fertilizer from the Persian Gulf to the U.S. and another 3 to 4 weeks to get it to farmers. So if they didn't apply fall fertilizer or didn't purchase it before now, they may be forced to plant less corn. Global fertilizer prices have risen with the war in Iran, and the worst case scenario may not even be priced in yet, which may force farmers to cut corn acres. The corn to urea price ratio is already one of the second or third worst in history, according to StoneX, but it's quickly getting worse.
But the farmers will tell you, listen, yeah, the value may have been worse, but my corn price was significantly higher during those times. I was making more money for the entire operation, so I could more handle that higher value proposition. Today, I think you're going to find most farmers telling you today's corn price is not great compared to what it was back then. This is, from an overall farming perspective, probably one of the worst times that we've seen.
While it helps President Trump is ensuring safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz, it doesn't eliminate the problem. So fertilizer may not get here in time for planting, and some retailers aren't even offering a bid, which could also shift acres away from corn.
The worry is if this turns into a multi-week situation, there's no catching up from that. That's where we have to start looking at the supply that we have or already on the way and say, well, who's willing to pay the most for it and who's willing to sit there and choose a different crop to plant that's not so nitrogen intensive.
Some farmers had already purchased nitrogen fertilizer, but for those that waited until spring, the sticker shock could change last-minute planting decisions.
Bringing in fertilizer, urea, I think it's another, negative to the corn market when you look at higher costs that were already there and you add more to it. So depending upon how long this goes, it's going to add to the cost of fertilizer, which is another, price factor that could push some guys away from corn as we move towards planting.
Joe Vaklovic of Standard Grain posted that up to 1 million acres of corn were being lost per week, with fertilizer prices being dragged higher by the Iran conflict. However, other analysts are more conservative and think even with a bigger cut to corn acres, it may not reduce ending stocks enough to raise prices.
It's possible. Now, we don't know exactly how much quote-unquote last-minute switching could be seen based on changes for soybean prices, based on changes for fertilizer pricing, etc. So these can give us some type of movement. We're not quite sure how much. But theoretically, maybe losing a few extra corn acres right now? I think we can make that point. Whether it's enough to substantially change the story, that's maybe a separate argument here.
So we'll wait to see what farmers decide in the March planting intentions report. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for Ag Day.
All right, as you can see there, the war that we have there in the Middle East and Iran is currently already affecting farmers. And the reason why I tell you that is because a significant amount of world supply of oil, world supply of fertilizer come through the streets of Hormuz. That is very close to Iran, and very much Iran can actually slow things down. One of the things that was not talked about in this particular video is President Trump and the administration is making, and CENTCOM are the guys down in Tampa that are actually fighting this war for us. They're making a decision on, are they going to put the Navy out, our U.S. Navy out, to try to bring some of those ships through. But again, all those things take time, and the markets don't wait. So I would tell you here on my farm, we have already made a decision that this year we will not be able to afford the fertilizer. We're going to end up going with the chicken manure. strictly because it was already high, and now we already starting to see those spikes. So that's the decision that we're making here on my farm. We'll again, I'm just trying to grow grass for my cows. Again, the row crop guys got to make their own decisions. But key piece that we're talking about here is this war is only on day 6, day 7. Don't quote me on the actual day. I think it's day 6. However, the question is, how long is it going to go? Right now, the administration is saying anywhere from 4 to 5 weeks. Right now, many farmers are already starting to try to get some crops in the field. And the question then comes into play, like they said in the video: did you buy your fertilizer in advance? The other piece is, even if you didn't buy your fertilizer in advance, were those ships that the company bought the fertilizer, did it make it through the streets of Hormuz? And if not, it's still standing out there in the middle of the ocean waiting to try to get here. Hence, that affects the supply and demand, and we kind of go from there. So we're going to continue to follow this later on in the show. Well, not later on the show, here next. Usually I don't do this. Usually I try to keep this podcast completely separate from whatever else I'm doing in my life. But I think in this particular case, I want the audience to know that you could see me in other capacities, and one of those other capacities is a retired brigadier general, and I have been on different news shows, and it'll probably be on many more to come, depending on how long this war is going to go. Talking about the war from my expertise as being a retired general, and at the same time being in combat, and at the same time spending many years in the Middle East, trying to make sure the American people understand what is currently going on from a military point of view, and then kind of from there. So I want to take time this morning. So I need to apologize. The video is going to have a banner on it that we cannot get off, but please disregard that and pay attention to what we're talking about. This, I think, is from the yesterday or the day before. And I think it's on News Nation, where I was on there at 6 o'clock in the morning. So with that, Shelley, will you play the video, and then I'll come back on the other side?
Now is Georgia Democratic congressional candidate, retired Brigadier General Sean Harris. General, good morning to you, sir. Thank you for your time. You have such an interesting perspective on this, because you're military, but you're also running as a Democrat, most of whom obviously overwhelmingly oppose this operation. Do you feel the same?
Well, Marky, I want to first say thank you for being on your show. But what makes me very different from everybody else is this: my last assignment was actually Israel. So when I saw the earlier clip of the bombs falling there in Israel and going into Lebanon, I have been there. I will say this: when I look at it or get to D.C., I'm going to look at everything and then vote for what's best for the nation. But I will also say that the president needs to come in and explain to the American people why we're in this war, how do we get in this war, and then how do we define getting out of this war.
Mm-hmm. I know that you say American people deserve clarity, Congress deserves a vote, troops deserve leadership with a clear objective. Just to be clear, had you been in Congress and had you been given a say on this, would you have voted to leave Iran alone at this time?
At this point, I would have to say I would go into the top secret briefing, see what was actually said, and then based on that and based on my prior experience, like I said earlier, I probably would have voted saying, yes, let's do it. But I would want to make sure that we go out and tell the American people what we're going to do before we actually did it.
Let me play some sound for you, sir, because the administration briefed the House and also the Senate last night, just amid confusion over the strike's justification. Take a listen to what Congresswomen Nancy Mace and Pramila Jayapal had to say about it.
The nation of Iran was further along and closer to getting a nuclear weapon than at any other point in world history. This needed to happen. It needed to happen now.
Imminent means immediate threat to the U.S. That was just not addressed at all.
General, is everyone not seeing the same intel on this? I mean, why is there such a stark division about how much of a threat Iran posed? I get Democrats saying, you know, I wish we had been given a heads up or given a say, but why is there such a stark difference on what kind of threat there was at hand?
Well, the reality of it is that this has been an ongoing debate for a long time. It's just not this time, but many times before. The reality of it is less than 6 months ago, this past summer, President Trump told us that he actually took out all their nuclear weapon systems and all those kind of things. The reality of it is Iran has been working on things, but I do not believe that it was an imminent threat. I believe that Israel wanted to do this strike. We went along with them, and now we're trying to explain it.
General, we're expecting the next press conference from War Secretary Hegseth here in just a couple hours' time. What more do you want to hear that they didn't answer or didn't address on Monday, just 48 hours ago?
Yeah, I look for him to tell us exactly what are the goals, lay them out 100%, and then on top of that, tell us what does winning look like, and then tell us how do we get out of this particular war and how long this time period is going to be. The other thing I definitely want to say before we get off the air is this, that the military is doing an outstanding job. I used to be part of CENTCOM. They are doing an extremely well job on the ground. That is not the issue. The issue is strictly how do we get into this war, and then how do we get out of it? Because the last thing I think any of us want is another forever war.
And lastly, just what do you think that exit strategy will look like? The White House is saying an estimate of could be 4 or 5 weeks, possibly longer. Yes. Is there any chance that this wraps up in that time frame? And do we see boots on the ground?
Well, those are all the questions that we need to be asking the president and the Secretary of War. I will say this. I believe that they probably can get it done in the next 4 to 5 weeks, but it is so many different variables that you see in the Middle East right now. With all the Gulf states are getting involved or being hit, this thing can get out of control real quick. So that's why I believe the president needs to come on, speak to the American people, and tell us what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how we're going to get out of it.
Of course, we'll take those next comments live, that presser live from Hegseth at 7 o'clock Central Time, 8 o'clock Eastern when it happens. Brigadier General Sean Harris, thank you so much for your time, sir. Greatly appreciate it. Tom Dempsey, Robert Sherman, thank you both as well. We'll loop back in with you shortly.
Okay. Like I said, I normally don't use whatever I do in my past in a different life on this particular show, but the way it's playing out today is my experience in my experience in the Middle East, my experience in the other countries around the world is now intercepting what I'm doing now in the civilian world as a cattle farmer, because when you hear us talk about the streets of Hormuz, when you hear us talk about all these different places, some of this fertilizer and different things that we're talking about come from that particular region. And as it talked about on the earlier video before mine, certain ships may be held back and the cost is going to go up. And right now, I think all of the farmers are actually hurting because input costs is across the roof. One of the things that I didn't talk about earlier is not only is we're talking about fertilizer, but we also talking about diesel and gas, specifically diesel will spike, and I think it's already spiking. So depending on, as a farmer, you're trying to get your crops in the field, if you didn't already purchase your diesel in advance and now you're trying to get it, you may see where the price is going up across the board. So a lot, like I said this morning, a lot of things are going on. And I think it's important that we share all of these things, because all of these things that are happening in the world, on the other side of the world, will have great effect on us here in the United States, specifically in the rural community. Like we talked about, we waiting. Some farmers are getting the FBA. Other farmers are still applying right now. Then on top of that, we have the pressure of the war that we're actually in, and prices are starting to spike across the board. So I want to make sure that this show, we actually talk about all those kind of things. And just to recap, like I said, we will take the time this week to read the 802 pages of the current farm bill that's actually out there. And then we'll report back next week on what is in it, but also what would we recommend to be in it, so that you can reach out to your representative and say, hey, a recommendation, we think you should go from there. I would also encourage you to write us, text us. We'll look at your comments. And from that, we will develop additional shows. One of the things I forgot to do in the beginning of the show, one of the things that I used to love to do as I traveled around the United States and I traveled around the world is get coffee cups. This coffee cup here is from Mr. Coffee Bean in Dothan, Alabama. I don't really remember when I went in that coffee shop. It maybe was 10, 12 years ago. I don't remember anymore. But I would just say this: if you have a coffee cup for your business, or coffee cup for your coffee shop, please put something in the text, your address. We will actually reach out. I'll purchase one and tell us a little story with your thing, and then as we have our coffee in the morning, I'll take a few minutes and I'll talk about your coffee cup, your company, your whatever. I will pay for it, so it's not an endorsement or anything, but I think that'd just be a cool little way to show all the little things that we're doing around the United States that's a little different. So every day on the show now, I'm going to grab a different coffee cup from upstairs, and I'll tell a little story to say, hey, this coffee cup, this one came from Dothan, Alabama. If it's Mr. Bean, if Mr. Bean is still open down there, please somebody go in there and say, hey, Sean was just talking about y'all guys this morning. And then I have coffee cups from all over the world. So with that, let us close out the show this way, like I always do. As y'all guys know, there's a lot of pressure on our farmers right now. There's a lot of pressure on our soldiers right now. But I'm going to talk the farmers piece first. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, 53 farmers per day right now are facing foreclosure. That's a lot of pressure. I want to make sure that all of our farmers know, our farmers' families know that, hey, if you're having an issue, please call the number that's on the screen. The number on the screen is 988. That is a national number. Please call that number, get some help, because you are very important today, and we want you to be with us tomorrow. So we all can work together and get through these pressures that we are. And I know the USDA office is working hard to help the farmers get their farm and keep things going for the next generation. So I put that out there, and then I'll be remiss if I didn't say it on this particular episode. As y'all guys know, as we're speaking to you this morning, 6 outstanding young men and women have paid the ultimate sacrifice in this current war that we're in. I want to pass my condolences to their families. I want to thank them for their service, and I pray that God keeps all of our troops safe, because I know exactly where they're at, and I know things are very tough now, but they highly trained. Their leadership is amazing. I know Admiral Cooper personally. He's the CENTCOM commander, and I know many of the other commanders and many of the sergeant majors are leading our men and women across the Middle East at this point. So keep them in your prayers, keep them safe, and we'll kind of go from there. So, hey, we've talked about a lot this morning. We've been on now for roughly about 40 minutes. What we're trying to do in the future is kind of keep the show somewhere between 30 to 45 minutes so that you can get in, get the information, and then get back out of here. So I want to just say to everybody, thank you, thank you, thank you. Please join us next week on our next episode, and please give us feedback on what do you want us to talk about, and we will try to build it into our program. So with that, the coffee cup is empty. Have a great day.